real stinker of the 2021 season, and that's exactly what we're witnessing right now. The Arizona Cardinals getting drubbed by the Carolina Panthers 23-0 at halftime. What went wrong and what can go right the rest of the game? We're going to get into it. Brack and Alex Clancy. It's Locked On Cardinals. It's your halftime.
Yuck.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on? Rise up, Red Sea. What's going on? Brack, Alex Clancy hanging out with you after the worst half of football for the Arizona Cardinals easily of the 2021 season. They trail the Carolina Panthers 23-0 at halftime. Cardinals staring down 8-2 going into week 11, I should say, against the Seattle Seahawks, who saw Zane Gonzalez being perfect in the first half, and guys like PJ Walker and Cam Newton kind of turning back the clock a little bit, and then Colt McCoy showing, the bad side of rolling with your backup quarterback after showing the good side last week, Alex.
Owen Wilson once said, very succinctly, really good. It was Armageddon. He was asking what it was going to be like on this asteroid that they had to explode. And after they explained it, he said, so scariest environment imaginable. That's all I had to say. Scariest environment imaginable. That's where we're at right now. They had 6 possessions in the first half and were on the field for 9.5 minutes. So I unloaded into Cliff a little bit. This obviously isn't all his fault. He's not playing the game, but the fact that they're not trying to establish a run, to have sustained drives, get a couple first downs in a row, kind of shift around the momentum regardless of what the score is. This isn't a high-powered offense they're playing against. They need to give their defense some rest. And the fact that he's throwing the ball 3 times in a row on multiple possessions over and over and over again, you can't win a game on one drive. So I understand they have to get back in this game, but sweet mother, take your time a little bit. I feel like they're trying to do it all in one drive.
It was interesting when we want to play the blame game, and I think I'm not going to put all this. This is just a complete team effort collapse. Like we haven't seen them play good on either side of the ball. I mean, this is the Carolina Panthers offense that had been atrocious up to this point, and then on a couple of short fields. And I think that's where some of the blame comes on Cliff early on. Second possession for the Cardinals was after the fumble. This was after Cam Newton and running in for the first score of the game. 4th and 1. The sneak with Colt McCoy. I thought that was an opportunity for the Arizona Cardinals to flip the field and then put their defense in a solid position. They didn't do that. The sneak goes nowhere. Carolina gets another easy score. They turn it into 7 more points. That time it was a Cam Newton passing touchdown. I thought that was a big mistake, and I think that kind of changed the way that because then you get a little desperate. Because you see the speed that Carolina's playing with on defense, and you see that they're taking away where Colt McCoy thrived last game against the San Francisco 49ers, not being able to make any plays in front of the sticks. They're taking that completely away outside of Christian Kirk on a couple exceptions.
Yeah. And you know what you can do to combat that? Run the damn ball. And listen, the stats aren't good with them running the ball, but if it's incomplete on 1st and 10, the majority of the time, teams are going to run the ball on 2nd down. So you can stack the box on 2nd down. The Cardinals are without all of their ones. Okay, I guess, James Conner is a 1A. You need to adapt. This isn't the first time that a head coach has looked at a team like, you know what? We don't have our best players right now. Okay, this is an absolute disgrace of a first half that we saw. Like there's no way to look at it and say, you know what? Jalen Thompson made a great play. Jordan Hicks almost ran a great play. You know what that shows? That on 2nd and 3rd and long, PJ Walker is going to make mistakes. Cam Newton is only going to hurt you if you're inside the 5, if you're playing defense against him inside the 5-yard line. He's not a good quarterback. Okay. That pass to Robbie Anderson I could have made that throw and he ran over somebody because he's 6'5", 250. Okay. Yeah. He's not going to be a world beater. You need to get this team on defense into 2nd and 3rd and long. Christian McCaffrey's an absolute machine, but the one thing the Cardinals do have going for them going into the second half is Vance Joseph is a master adjuster at halftime. We saw it last year, and we've seen it through his entirety as defensive coordinator. Cliff Kingsbury needs to pull his weight calling plays on offense to be on the field for longer than 1 minute and 45 seconds to give this defense a time to breathe and be at their optimal strength and stamina to be able to turn the ball over. Otherwise, they have no chance.
I mean, the defense showed you that, like, once you take Cam Newton, who's one of the arguably one of the greatest threats around the area where he was successful twice early in this contest, like, you take him out of that, you put him on the 50-yard line, he becomes a very pedestrian quarterback. That's been his problem for a long time. So the good thing is the Arizona Cardinals, I think going forward, I mean, what's the plan? Do you just kind of lick your wounds? Do you just put your tail between your legs and get out of here as unscathed as possible? Or you go out there, I mean, and you don't get the ball to start the second half. You actually started the game with the ball before the fumble from Colt McCoy caused by Hassan Reddick, former Arizona Cardinal. Do you try to, salvage this game, or do you just kind of pack it in?
No. Get a stop to start the third quarter. Start with that.
It's possible.
If you get a third and out. They're only down so they're not down 35-0. Okay. They're down 23-0, right? They're down 3 scores. Okay. A 3 and out and a touchdown, then you're having a different conversation. Like it's first things first. There's a bunch of steps that need to happen, but the more angst and the more stress you put on the Panthers offense, the higher chance that they're going to make a mistake, which turns into momentum in a specific half. Just because the Cardinals are down, they just need to put points on the board. They need to put points on the board, and they need to get a quick stop 3 and out. But if Christian McCaffrey is going to run roughshod, if they're going to run the ball 6 times for 60 yards on this drive, you may as well put Chris Streveler and take AJ Green and James Conner off the field.
Well, you got to regain some confidence in your backup quarterback. I think that's going to be important the rest of the way through. Make sure that you can get Colt McCoy back to a position where he's making plays for this team. We didn't see it all first half. It was brutal. He knew he came out. He knew it, like, hey, I'm going to have to make throws down the field to win this game because they're going to take away where I was successful against the 49ers. And he's looked really bad. He really has. But there's a couple things that can be true at the same time. That was the worst half of football for the Arizona Cardinals this season. Right. They're still 8-1. They're still a really good team. They've got their 2 best players out in this contest, and the Carolina Panthers came to play. They're kicking their ass. I mean, that's just what's happening. Can the Arizona Cardinals salvage? I think, yeah, absolutely. There's some things that you can probably get out of Glendale with beyond a W that you can feel proud about.
Yeah, and you can have solace, as you mentioned. Every other team in the NFL's had a bad loss this year that's towards the top.
Oh, look at Tampa today.
Yep, Tampa, that's 2 in a row. I mean, Green Bay got absolutely, embarrassed by New Orleans and Jameis Winston in week 1. I know it was week 1, but every team has had one of these before. It's a long season. Kyler Murray, if Kyler Murray were playing and they were down 23-7 at halftime, we'd have a lot more question marks, obviously. Yeah. But both things can be true. 1, the Cardinals need to save face, as you mentioned. And 2, there's happy to be here thought processes. And there's every week is important if you want to get that 1 seed or if you want to get a high seed in the playoffs. Both can be true. One's a fan perspective, and one is probably a doomsday perspective. Find your way to the middle, where this game is still important, and they still need to try to win this game and not just be happy. Oh, they're 8-2. Nobody expected this. That is a defeatist attitude, and that's not something you could think about either.
Sure, and I don't think I think the Arizona Cardinals proved last week that wasn't going to be their approach. If you had to choose, though, like, would you take the game on the road against the San Francisco 49ers where you played lights out, or the game against Carolina? I think that you would take the win if it meant sacrificing, an opportunity this week. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You wish you saw a better performance. We haven't. It's been a brutal first half. How can they change things up in the second half? You think it's going to lean on James Conner, but because you said before the game, you got to monitor.
And Benjamin, you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball. At least try to run the ball. Give your defense a chance. They need to be on the field for more than 15 minutes of this half. They need to tip the scales back. And Colt McCoy, we've seen both poles of Colt McCoy. This is why he's not a starting quarterback. He can be great one game and an S-box the next game, turning the ball over. We need to see that middle ground clip of Colt McCoy for the rest of the season if he plays. Because if he continues to play like this and Kyler Murray's not ready for next week, you're going to get a hobbled starting quarterback out of need to keep up in the NFC, which is something you do not want. And that's why you brought Colt McCoy in. I don't think the second part is possible. I think he's a lot closer to the first version of him that we saw in San Francisco last week than what we saw in the first half. But we got to see something. You got to see some fight from this team.
Absolutely. I want to see more of a impact from the defensive side of the football. I mean, they made the big play, Jalen Thompson. There was the big play that was nearly made by Jordan Hicks. It was never overturned. It just wasn't a pick from Jordan Hicks. It would have been a huge play for this defense, but I still don't think that this Carolina Panthers offense should be moving the ball like they are, or like they did in the first half. They did benefit from couple short fields, but I'd like to see more plays made from this defense. You are, outside of JJ Watt at full strength on that side of the football.
Yeah.
But
where's Chandler Jones?
Where is he? It's a good question. There was one play where I kind of knew that we were in for a long day. It was when PJ Walker was blitzed, and he still was able to connect with was it DJ Moore, who I'm sure
I think
playing
so.
in fantasy today, right? And he's probably
he hasn't got in the end zone yet.
Where he just connected, and when he was on his back foot, and he just zipped it right in there, and you're just like, okay, if he's going to be completing those passes with that much pressure, this is going to be a long one for the Cardinals defense.
I mean, you got to look at it this way. Vance Joseph has been a master blitz packager last year.
Yeah.
Go all out now. You got nothing to lose. Like, you legitimately have nothing to lose in the second half. Make PJ Walker urinate, go number 1 or number 2 in his proverbial pants. You have some of the biggest, strongest, fastest defensive players in the NFL. Isaiah Simmons, I would just take Isaiah Simmons and say, see quarterback, hit quarterback the rest of the game and deal with the coverage outside of him. Make Jordan Hicks drop in coverage. I know he's slower, but I don't care. They need to rush the passer as much as possible. And just, if they lose 50-0, who cares? At this point, it doesn't really matter. Go after and get them.
Second half is starting from Glendale. We've got our post-game reaction pod, new thing we're adding on this Locked On Cardinals. Brack, Alex Clancy. Make sure you're following along the rest of the game at Clancy's Corner, at Bob Brack, and at Locked On.
Give me one more Owen Wilson impression first.
Wow. I can't do
That's
it.
good.
I'm only good for
That's
one.
pretty good.
All right.
I appreciate that.
We'll talk to you guys after the game. Make sure you're following along. Talk to you soon.